Most ponies thought of the world of Equestria as endless, an infinite world. But those ponies are all gone now, and my job of raising and lowering the sun has become all for naught. Most ponies think, or thought, that the end of Equestria would come in a massive fireball and would bring about destruction of immeasurable power. This is not so. Equestria did not fold into a massive abyss, or become alight with the flames of destruction, or rot in the pestilence of disease, or any of these atrocities. It was very peaceful, in fact. You may be asking exactly where every pony went. To put it plainly, they all simply faded away into time, and I stood vigil over an empty harbour, somehow hoping that a ship of hope would moor soon. This, I soon realised, was silly. But it was what kept me going. I, just as every pony else, have reached the threshold of old age. Even my younger sister Luna has perished before me. And soon, I grew tired. I raised the sun, I lowered the sun. It was my usual day. I could always fend off the boredom, but the loneliness was what plagued me. Day after day, I performed the same routine, hoping that some sort of life would spring forth and give me purpose. But these hopes faded after centuries of solitude. As to why they are gone, quite simply, they stopped reproducing. My subjects simply felt no desire to continue their bloodlines. They were completely content with growing old with their spouses and friends, not having to worry about a house full of foals to care for. I pleaded with them to reconsider, but time and time again they simply smiled and said that they were perfectly happy and that there was no sense in making a new generation. I was confused, baffled. I had never even heard of such a strange happening. Every pony everywhere was completely happy with their lives. It was then that I realized exactly what was happening. Equestria had fulfilled its purpose. All three races, Pegasus, Unicorn, and Earth, lived in perfect harmony. It was said that Equestria was created to mature its inhabitants, to prepare them for what lay beyond their mortal domains. For the most part, this was dismissed as old folklore. But in the closing years of the Equestrian race, I realized just how far they had advanced, and how much truth that old adage held. Even in the days when the elements of harmony were used, nearly a millennia ago, I had never seen such a perfect society. Not a single pony performed a selfish deed, or left a friend forlorn. As the last inhabitant of Equestria exhaled her last breath, a wide, content smile spread across her face, and she looked me in the eyes, as if to tell me everything was going to be okay. A single tear rolled down her soft, weathered cheeks. Her old frame shuddered slightly, and was still. I looked down upon my younger sister, upon the alicorn that had stood beside me for centuries. Whatever grief I felt now was gone. Wherever they were going was where they wanted to be, and they were ready. Equestria had become the perfect world, and thus was ready to fade away. I bent close to her, muzzle to her ear, and whispered a last goodbye. Centuries after the last friend I'd known had faded away, I still raised the sun and moon and kept vigil over a vast, empty land. For the first time in my long life as ruler of Equestria, I felt at rest. No evil threatened my subjects, no violence or crime was ever committed, no issues called to my attention. I often looked up at the sky, looking for an answer, some recognition of my existence. On particularly starry nights, I'd stare up and think of Luna, counting each one, admiring her handiwork. A smile would creep across my face as fond memories of her and others invaded my mind. Luna was one of the only ponies I still knew the name of. After a couple hundred years alone, keeping names isn't exactly a top priority. Still, at least knowing the identities of those that have moved on would at least hinder my loneliness. Sometimes, I would forget that any pony else had ever even existed. After a certain amount of time, things begin to seem normal that way. I couldn't even seem to remember their voices or appearances. One night, I decided to visit my old room, a place I had not been in many, many years. I entered, pushing the large wooden door aside. It creaked as dust fell from the hinges, a testament to its lack of use. A small magical fire still burned, lighting the room dimly with flickering shadows and a faint orange glow. Cobwebs hung low and spanned all around the room. My bed that I once rested in sat and gathered layers of dust, revealing how long it had been since I last set hoof in here. As I traversed the room, I noticed a faint glimmer. I looked to the source just under the bed. It appeared to be a small paper roll, with a shiny red ribbon securing it to a cylinder. There was a certain familiarity about it. With a puzzled look, I levitated it just in front of my face and studied it. Dear Princess Celestia, today I learned that your friends are the most important people in your life, and with them, every day is simply that much better. During my time in Ponyville, I've not only gained friends, but learned the valuable role they play in everyday life. It's hard to imagine just a day without them. Your faithful student, Twilight Sparkle. I gasped slightly and felt myself tear up. This was the closest to any communication I've had to ponies in centuries. In a rush, it all came back. Twilight Sparkle, Applejack, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie and Rarity. I hurriedly peered under my bed once again and discovered a plethora of others. I tugged each one out and read it. Sure enough, they were all addressed from my faithful student, Twilight Sparkle. As I scanned each parchment, every memory flooded in. I remembered nearly every encounter with these 6 incredible ponies, and even Spike. I remembered that battle with Discord. I remembered the time Twilight nearly went crazy trying to send me a letter. I remembered the marriage of Cadence and Shining Armor. All these years, my memory has faded. There's been nothing to remind me of the past, nothing to affirm my memories. A small smile formed amidst the tears, and I clutched the letters close, as if to guard them for my life. They were my last connection to the world, and one of the only things to remind me of the wonderful life I and many others had lived. I stood, hearing my joints pop. The youthful memories I just recounted were a stark contrast to the present. I was getting older. I could feel it. Walking long distances now took energy from me, and my magic had become less powerful. Bringing the sun to attention had never troubled me before, but now it seemed like a chore. I walked about the gardens, admiring the handiwork of those who created it. Shrubs sat perfectly trimmed, vexed by an everlasting magic to retain perfect shape. I moped from the hard granite steps and down into the cushiony green grass. The blades of grass and soft dirt felt wonderful. A cool breeze brushed against my coat. Ruffling my feathers, I cantered down to where a small pond lay. The reflection that gazed back surprised me. The once vibrant alicorn I had known myself to be had become that of incredible age. My face wore the lines of time, and my once vibrant coat dulled to a light grey. Even my mane had lost much luster. Once long and flowing, bearing sparkles of mysticism, it now hung low and draped around my shoulders. Even with this bleak realization, I smiled. It was funny, really, how I, the epitome of wisdom and infinite youth, now am cast in an ancient form, alien even to myself. I sighed, half with sorrow, half with relief. All this would be coming to an end soon, I could feel it. Equestria's days were numbered, and I knew it. I only had so much strength left in me. Every day became more and more difficult. The sun seemed to weigh infinite tons, making it nearly impossible to keep at full mast, so to speak. Harder still was the moon. Not even particularly my domain, the moon took far greater energy to cycle through, as it had been intended to be moved by my younger sister. I had never truly learned Luna's skill for it, and now it was far too late. In the closing days of my life, I gave up on the moon, allowing it to sink forever into the void. Equestria had lasted many a millennia, but now it was time. Each day grew more and more tiring, and for the last day I put forth greater effort than I ever had, causing the sun to shine more radiantly than ever before. I spent most of the day wandering on weak legs, peering out windows, and admiring the beauty this world had offered me for one final time. Rays of light shot across valleys, and beamed through trees, sending spears of radiance across the land. I found a particular spot on a tower balcony, high above the parapets that adorned the now faded castle. I watched the sun slowly glide by. A slow breeze skirted by, drawing my attention towards a valley. The everfree forest loomed over a small cluster of buildings. A town square, an apple farm, a school building, and a tree house were still standing. I smiled with a tear in my eye, recalling faintly the cheery faces and smiles of those who occupied the spaces. A small river snaked along, meandering into the desert. Appaloosa stood just beyond, squat and simple. The faintest of glimmers indicated the ancient testament of the once Crystal Empire. Equestria had been a wonderful place, full of grace, beauty and charm. Fond memories of bustling candlelit streets filled my mind, ponies trotting along, telling tales of their days and adventures. The Wonderbolts flew overhead, practicing for a big performance. Quiet soiree music floated between city streets. Foals and mothers window shopped, husbands in tow. It was all so perfect. Bringing myself back from my stupor, I peered west, bittersweetly taking note of the sinking sun. With that, I descended the tower stairs, small tears forming at the insides of my eyes. Soon, I would rejoin all those that had moved on. Soon, I would see my friends once more. My hooves clopped quietly against the marble steps, echoing through the hollow memory that was my home. With slow, gliding steps, I reached the large oaken door of my chambers. My hoof glided along the bed as I walked in, sighing heavily. Clambering into my bed for a final slumber, I glanced out the window. A cool breeze rolled in and caressed my face. Clouds floated silently across the evening sky. Orange streaks painted the sky wonderful colours, intermixing with beautiful shades of red and pink. Tiny specks of stars began to shine through the creeping tendrils of light. My eyelids are now heavy, and I'm breathing deeply. I can't help but smile. I've been waiting so long for this. To see them all again, and to create one final sunset. I sing to myself a tune I remember from the days that I enjoyed the most, just before slipping away into eternal peace. Hush, now, quiet, now it's time to lay your sleepy head. Hush, now, quiet, now it's time to go to bed.